Hey everyone, and welcome back. So today we're going to be doing a quick review of Cotton 100% for the Nintendo Switch. So now if we just start quickly with the basics, this game is a side-scrolling what we would call cute 'em up that released on October 29th of 2021, and it currently sells on the Nintendo Switch eShop for $14.99. Now this game is published by In Games and it has a download size of only 35 megabytes. Now, is this a retro shooter that is worth investing $15 in? Hopefully, by the end of the review today, you'll have that question answered. And just before we jump in, don't forget that if you do like the content, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel if you aren't already. So let's begin with the storyline. For those that are unaware, this is a port of a Super Famicom game that was never officially released to Western audiences. You play as Nana the Cotton, who by the way I'll just be calling Cotton from now on. A young witch who gets motivated by a fairy named Silk into saving the world from darkness by the promise of being able to feast on tons of candy called willows. Now I would love to fill you in on more of the story, but for the moment one major disappointment is that the cutscenes have not been localized and are only in Japanese. Now the developer has promised an English patch to come, but as this is a first release to the West, it is too bad that it was not available upon release. So now on to the gameplay. If you are used to side-scrolling shooters, the basic mechanics here are fairly standard fare. You have to destroy incoming enemies while dodging bullets and obstacles, and this is a one-hit will kill you system, so dodging here is definitely the priority. The game is split up into 7 main levels with a mid-boss and an end boss on each one of them. And I would definitely say that the boss fights are the highlight of the overall gameplay. Now when you start a new game, you do have the choice between 4 different armament kits, each with 3 unique magic spells and a different formation for the additional fairies you can collect. This is an interesting system as it adds at least a little bit of replayability. You also have a slight RPG mechanic, where acquiring crystals through your run will upgrade Cotton's weapons. You can also acquire additional fairies that adds firepower and can offer slight protection from enemies depending on the formation you choose earlier. Overall, the mechanics work well and are interesting, although I did find that certain kits were better balanced than others. So now if we jump into the controls. In reality, not much has changed from the original release. Y fires your main weapon, B allows you to drop bombs, X cycles between your magical attacks, and finally A fires your currently equipped magical ability. Now responsiveness did seem overall acceptable with only a slight level of delay, but there is a connected issue we will address in the graphical performance section. The actual only addition made here for this release is the rewind function added to the L bumper. They also give you the option of using the D-pad or the left joystick to move Cotton, always something I like to see for ports of retro games. Controls can be remapped, but function fairly well as is. Maybe bombs could go to the right ZR trigger for more comfort. And now finally, we get to the graphics and sound. Now here, they have stayed very faithful to the original, maybe even a little too faithful, and I do have a few issues to go through. First of all, Cotton 100% was at certain points pushing the limits of the graphical capabilities of the Super Famicom, and therefore led to unwanted slowdowns. And unfortunately, probably due to the emulation chosen here, those slowdowns have been reproduced. Now this can be seen as giving an authentic experience, but to me, not leveraging the extra power of the Switch to make this the best version of the game feels like the wrong choice. And especially in a fast-moving side-scrolling shooter, dying to an unwanted slowdown from the emulation system really doesn't feel that good. Now a second issue that I came by is in the options menu, the game lets you select between 3 different aspect ratios, 4:3, pixel perfect, or full screen. But as of now, these actually don't work, and the game always remains in 4:3. Perhaps this is a bug to be patched out, but if not, showing options that don't work once again just feels very wrong. At least, however, the CRT shaders do work, and we have the same extended options we saw on other releases like Glaylancer. Sound-wise, you are getting a pretty close experience to the original. And although I would not say this is the most memorable of soundtracks for a side-scrolling shooter, it fits well with the cutesy design of the general game. Also, on a side note, the pea shooter sound effect for your main weapon is not my favorite, but once again, it's fitting for a cute 'em up. I'm overall disappointed with these issues and the overall performance. With a $14.99 price point, this does feel like a lazy port, and at that price, I really do expect more. Hopefully, a future patch can address most of these issues. So now, on to the verdict. And if you're unfamiliar with my grading scale, you can take a quick look in the description of the video. Now, I will be giving Cotton 100% on the Nintendo Switch a 6, putting it on the low end of an okay game. Now, I do want to start my conclusion by mentioning that I really do love the Cotton series, and even recently really enjoyed the release of Cotton Reboot. I mean, that particular release even winded up making my list of top 10 shmups currently on the Nintendo Switch. And that is why I was actually really hyped for the release of both Cotton 100% and Panorama Cotton. Also, when I saw that both were going to be releasing individually at $15 each, and most retro shooters of the SNES Genesis era were releasing around $7, I was really expecting top-notch ports. Now maybe they tried to rush these to be before the Halloween deadline, with Cotton being a witch and all, and they've already announced language packs to sort of correct the issue of all the cutscenes only being in Japanese, so maybe we can cross our fingers and other major patches will drop to address the other issues. However, as it stands right now, I really don't recommend Cotton 100% to be picked up at its full price. I mean, even if you're a fan of the series, I would wait for a deep sale. And more particularly, Cotton 100% isn't a bad game, it just feels like a slightly overpriced port. So now I turn the question over to all of you. Do you think you'll be picking up Cotton 100% on the Nintendo Switch, or should we maybe revisit this in the future after a few patches have dropped? And as I said earlier, don't forget on the way out, if you did like this video, to consider hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel if you aren't already, and also hitting the notification bell so you know when all my future videos come out. And as usual, I hope I'll see all of you in my next video.